Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. My name is Suleiman. At noon today, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into law the revoked Electoral Act Amendment Bill at the Council Chamber of the Presidential Villa. In April 2021, Nigeria's Electoral Commission, INEC, announced the dates for the 2023 elections. INEC said that the presidential election will hold on February 18, 2023. That's the presidential and the National Assembly elections, and then March 4 for the governorship and Houses of Assembly elections. While the dates for the elections were announced, the notice of the election wasn't issued by the Commission. President Buhari had on December 21, 2021, via a letter read during the plenary sessions at both houses of the National Assembly, declined assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021. The president noted that the mandatory use of direct primaries for all political parties in the country will be too expensive to execute, and he added that it will put a financial burden on Nigeria's resources. That was the fifth time the president declined assent to the amendments to the Electoral Act in the last 5 years. There have been attempts to amend the Electoral Act 2010, that is the extant electoral law in the country, since the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. However, these efforts have not been successful, mainly because of the back and forth between the various actors in the political system over several contentious provisions in the proposed amendments. But as is often said, a journey of 1,000 years begins with a step. And tonight, despite all the politicking and all the tensions, Nigeria now has a new electoral law 2022. So tonight we ask, what are the main changes in the new law? To what extent can these changes make our elections freer and fairer? After all, that's the objective. Who are the winners and losers of all the politics of the Electoral Amendment Bill? With me to discuss these issues are Madam Faith Nwadishi, Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, CTA, and Mr. Austin Aibe, who is Senior Program Manager, Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. Welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
We seldom don't have lady and gentleman mixed, so I think today is going to be interesting, and you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. But before we go on, we'll just take 1 minute of a break, and when we return, we'll jump right into it and bring out all that the new law means to Nigerian democracy. Stay tuned. Too high. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics, and we're discussing issues around the new Nigeria's brand new Electoral Law 2022. So, Madam, we usually start from the left, and then from the right, and end in the left. You cannot imagine how important this is sometimes to our guests, sometimes particularly the politicians. Say, for example, you have an APC person here and a PDP person here. Who speaks first is important to them.
Exactly.
But, that kind of thing. But this is okay. Madam, this back and forth between this electoral law, even before today, many Nigerians really didn't believe that the president was going to sign it. You know, yesterday and the day before, there were even protests by civil society organizations like yourselves, you know, protesting or insisting that the president must sign this law. So what changed, you know, from the beginning to now?
I think what changed was that the president needed to leave a statement behind because he's not contesting the election in 2023. Unlike in 2019, he was a contestant in the 2019 election, and because consistently he had promised that he was going to leave an electoral process that Nigerians would be proud of. And again, something that truly changed was because of the fact that Nigerians knew what they wanted and they kept the pressure. They sustained that pressure, and Mr. President at a point in time realized that he had to do the bidding of Nigerians. If only Nigerians realize that this power, they have it as the office of the citizen of Nigeria, the CEO of the country, that power to hire and fire is really within them, and they have it in their hands. A lot of things could change.
So by Nigerians, you mean especially the civil society organizations?
Yeah, civil society, ordinary Nigerians, the media, of course, added their voice to a lot of that. If you leave it to the political class, they wouldn't want anything to change. Because the Electoral Act, for the first time, we're seeing a very progressive Electoral Act that is really looking at the reforms and moving us to an electoral value chain that Nigerians actually will be proud of. We're just coming from the FCT election where we had the Minister of State for the FCT you know, proposing that the progress we have made in an election should be set aside and we should go back 20 years before.
When we
were, yes, you know, before, you know, and then this was the same system we had where elections would still be going on and then results would be announced. I remember some years ago, I was observing elections in Delta State. We're still on the field trying to get trying to collect results, still on the field. People were still voting. And then we sat down to watch the national TV and we saw the Delta State election being announced on TV. The results being announced
elections
on TV.
While
elections were still going on. But over the years, we have seen that progress. But we needed to make more progress. Unfortunately, we didn't get it in 2019. And now we are getting it in 2023. And in signing that Electoral Act, which is now an act, for a very long time we have talked about the Electoral Bill.
Yes.
I was very excited. In fact, I was training a group of people today, and I had to take out time and say, Nigerians, please let us congratulate ourselves
for this.
that at least we now have we have this. And this is what we have been saying. Why don't you pass the electoral bill into an act? And if you want any amendments, just the same way you sent the Petroleum Industry Act back to the National Assembly for some amendments, you could also do that. And that's what the President had done and called for amendments in Section 82 of the bill.
I think we'll come back, especially to the amendments, the areas where there will be need for amendments, right?
Yes.
But also to the clause by clause or section by section of the bill, the law itself. Some areas that might, as you said, you know, improve our democratic governance and our electoral governance. But Mr. Ibe, the politics of the signing of the bill into law in the first instance, that's been interesting in its own right, because the various actors that were involved, you know, the National Assembly, the governors, the political parties, the presidency, the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, all of these, you know, played crucial roles at various points in this process. Who can you describe as winners or losers in this now?
Nigerians won.
Okay.
Nigerians won. All of those individuals we talked about are from Nigerians.
Okay.
We voted them, so they represent us, including the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represent the Nigerian interest. Nigeria as a country won. Won for many reasons. Like my colleague has said, the improvement in that architecture will be better for us going forward. we are not where we want to be because there are still certain provisions that requires improvement. However, we also need to test this act to be sure of the malfeasance that will come up. You know that the politicians always, I used to tell my people around me, I said, let's not underrate politicians. They are clever. They have a way of usurping and finding a way out. And it is that finding a way out we have tried to work with the National Assembly to block all of the loopholes that we previously observed. For example, it was in this country somebody had to be declared under duress. And when INEC suspended that process, the court said, you do not have power. INEC, you are a busybody. You don't have power. Once a fellow is declared by the returning officer, the Electoral Act says that only the court can reverse that. So INEC had no business suspending the certificate of return to be issued to the individual. And of course, the person won, and today the person is the Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The law has taken care of that gap. So INEC now have the power, administrative power, to look at when someone says he's been declared under duress, and if the returning officer come out to say, I did this under duress, INEC does have the power now to suspend the issuance of certificate of return and then go to the processes and review all of those. But it's also important that President Buhari didn't call the civil society group to that ceremony because we were all part of the process. Men group, women group, youth group, we were all part of the agitation. Nigerians were part of the agitation.
The ownership would have been better. All Nigerians will feel that this is our law, not...
Again, maybe because the National Assembly and the House of Representatives, I mean, the Senate and the House of Representatives are our representatives, so you're still Nigerians. I mean, with all due respect, I saw the chair of the House of Representatives by this side, and I saw the Senate president on the other side. It was more of a representation. I mean, it was clear that, yes, I think over time, the president had actually wanted to sign the electoral bill, but there was a lot of interest. Take it or leave it, before 2019 election, the president had his own self-interest.
That because at that time he was still a candidate.
He was a candidate. So it was a self-interest.
Exactly. Yes.
That was why he had to reject 4 times. Until December of 2018, when he said, based on ECOWAS protocol, I don't want to put myself because it will affect INEC preparation and all of that. Whereas we know that was political interest because if you wanted to obey the ECOWAS protocol, you would have you don't select, you don't pick from the protocol. You obey all because there were other provisions in the protocol that ought to improve our electoral architecture. But the president just picked one, and it was fine. But now that we now have, last year there was one. People criticize the direct primaries. At the CDD, we were actually up for the direct primaries. We feel that the direct primaries...
I think we'll come to individual sections and provisions of the law. Maybe we look a little bit more at the broader issues, first of all. Madam Faith, if you observe, in a way we can say that this electoral law now, or the process of passing it into law, was more or less a kind of contest between the governors on the one hand and the National Assembly members on the other. And each, were trying to use provisions of the law, to protect or advance their own interests in various ways. How has this squared off now?
It has become a culture in our legislative processes in the country. You notice that if you do an analysis of all the laws that have been passed so far, there's a lot of interest about what should I protect, who is at the stage now, what is it that the person needs to enjoy, what is it that we need to have within this law. And it's not just the Electoral Act, it's every law that has ever gone through the National Assembly. Every law that has ever gone through the National Assembly. And that hurts the process because you find out that as soon as that person who is trying to protect his or her interest is out of that position, he or she begins to see the loopholes. And that we go back back to that circle. It's every law in this country. And so when the governors see that, there's this running battle between members of the National Assembly and the governors at their state level, who is the leader of the political party at the state level. Governors, so we are the ones that are the leaders at the of the political party. The senators and the members of House of Reps say we are the representatives of the people, so we should be the leaders of the political party. But political parties have defined to say the governors should be the leaders at the political party level. But again, you go, and I'm so excited about this law because gradually we are coming to where we need to be in our electoral processes. We have seen in these countries where a governor single-handedly picks who should be a member of the National Assembly, who should be a member at State Assembly. And so you have the executive lording it over the legislature, when the legislature should actually play oversight over the executive. But because they say he or she who pays the piper dictates the tune. So you have a situation whereby it is the governor who sits on resources from the state, especially it's a very rich state. And so whatever the governor wants at any point in time, you see the legislators all dancing through to it. But the Electoral Act, over the years, citizens have come to understand that this is where we should rule. And I keep telling citizens that as soon as you are 18, the only thing that qualifies you to be the CEO of the country is to get registered and have your PVC, your voter's card. And as soon as you have that, understand what the laws, what the rules of the games are. Once we understand that, I'm telling you, with time, politicians will begin to understand that citizens know where they're going. And so that's why you see a situation between the governors trying to play a very strong hand on that. And legislators, again, remember that the law says governors can only have a 2-tenure system where they spend a maximum of 8 years. But legislators can be there for life.
Yes.
Legislators can be there for life. So they want a situation whereby there's a law that protects that for them. And we're already seeing the culture of our electoral process that governors now aspire to become senators. So they're also looking at a system where that protects what they are doing and going into all of that. So the intrigues of all of that back and forth fighting, like Agbe said, is that Nigerians are winners. Nigerians have to be at the center. But Nigerians need to truly understand that for you to be able to exercise your power as a CEO of a country, you need to understand what the laws are saying and be able to put that pressure such that whether it is the governors or the members of the House of National Assembly, they understand where the power is. And that's why this, maybe we'll talk about that later. And that's why you see politicians are now spending more money. They are spending more money on election day on the field to buy people's votes rather than staying somewhere else to do that. Because they see that with the kind of electoral act that we have, people are now the ones who are making the decisions. The 2022 FCT election that we had is a pointer to what is going to happen in 2023. And politicians need to truly sit up, whether the governors and all of that. And that's why you see the president asking for a review of Section 82 of that law. That's what we would have loved to see. People are using the power of incumbency to distort issues. Now, you have a governor who wants to run another election, that's fine. But you have somebody who has been appointed as a minister, as a special assistant. You still have access to state resources. And you want to remain in that power while you are running for the election. When you are not governor, you are not all of that.
That's so an interesting part,
exactly.
Because that's where you find that the governors and the National Assembly members, that's at least in one place where they are kind of united against the Abuja guys.
Exactly.
Because the Abuja guys, the appointees of the president and so on, the ministers, the special advisors and so on.
Exactly.
So that the new in the new law, I think Section 84 or 1112 provides that they cannot be in office unless, they cannot be elected I mean, they cannot
be in
elect,
office and be
vote or be voted
or
for.
be voted, or even be delegates.
Exactly.
In their
so how is this going
primaries.
to play out in practice now that the president has signed it? Because it will appear to work against some of his own closest aides who have political ambitions in the next few months.
I think that's also why the last bill was not signed.
Okay.
So because you understand, that was when my last pattern of thought was going to direct primaries. The reason for direct primaries was to remove these so-called super delegates and super individuals who pretend to be party members. And I tell you why it's a challenge.
Okay.
For example, if I live in the United States and someone wins in the election and I was not part of the process of election, I was then imported into Nigeria and made a commissioner. Automatically, I become an automatic delegate against the people who were on the ground, who worked day and night to see that elected official elected to power. It's unfair to members of party. It's not strengthening political party system in this country. And that's why we consistently say that the political party system is the weakest link to our democratic consolidation.
Absolutely.
The parties who ought to be strong to determine and to determine the course of action, to build governance, are weak. And if you look at internal party democracy, it's a charade in this country where some individuals sit in the room and just say, well, you are not going today. You go. No. You offended me 2 years ago. You are not going. You sit down. Even though that individual is very popular. Why? Because the one who is determining this course of action already had with him or her a huge number of delegates, his commissioners, his ministers, his special aides. Some of them who are members, we no longer have local government election in this country. We just came up from Kebbi, where one party won all through.
Maybe in the
we just
FCT.
came up from Enugu, no, because they are different authority conducting the election.
Yes.
And Enugu happened just a few hours ago, and the one party won across board. The chair of those council becomes automatic delegate. So if there are states like Osun where you have 30 local government, so you already have 30 delegates with you. Then if you have 30 commissioners, that's 60. Whereas I'm supposed to be competing with you, where you have 60 votes ahead of you without anything. And those 60 individuals have their well-wishers and friends and cronies that you must win one. You must win one. That's 30 times 2 becomes 60. You already have like 60 votes ahead. And you know, voting is contagious. When I tell you to vote for me, there's a tendency that your families will vote for me. And you imagine that you have a commissioner who is under me as a governor or as president, minister, to say, well, I need your state to be delivered.
Yes.
It was in this country, votes were numbered, were coded. That as you are voting, they know who voted.
So how would this affect the ambitions? For example, you know, people like Honorable Rotimi Amechi, they're busy collecting traditional titles here and there. You know, when Nigerians do these things, it's because they harbor political ambitions, which is legitimate because we're in a democracy.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
So, but how does it affect their chances in the next elections? You know, people like the Attorney General, who it's no longer a rumor, you know, it's open secret that he wants to be governor of Kebbi State, you know, and so on. So how would it affect their ambitions? Would they now have to resign a few months, or how would it play out, you know, from the law to practice?
If we are utilizing this law, which I assume will be gazetted within a few days, because without gazetting it, we just sign document, it's not official law. So we assume that within 24 hours it will be gazetted so that INEC can actually take it up. I mean, it's no longer news. Like you said, I was in Kebbi during the local government election. The posters is everywhere, the banners, the billboards are everywhere. The man is going to be governor. He wants to be governor. So it's not. But you know, that's where we talk about the conflict of interest. So you are intending to become governor, and you are the one advising the Mr. President on signing an electoral bill that are impact on you.
It's a serious conflict.
It's a serious conflict. And that is why we say, Mr. President, it's conflict. It ought not to participate in the process. And that is what the law, again, like you said, mean. The conflict between the executive and the parliament is each one trying to create a law that is more accountable. So why the parliamentarians on their side know that they offend their governors, they are likely not going to come back. Exactly. So they need to put certain things in the provision that create a level playing field, a level playing atmosphere for all of them, for everyone. But the governors still want to behave like former governors who determine the course of action, who take National Assembly as a retirement house, who we need to sack. Let's stay with Kebbi, for example.
Yes.
You know, there's a Senate, the Senate leader who is from Kebbi. There's a former governor who is there, Alero, who is also there. And the governor may be interested. In fact, rumor says that he wants to go to the Senate. He's going to sack Alero.
And the Senate leader wants to become governor.
Governor. So the two camps. Exactly. The two camps. In fact, what is happening in Nigeria is actually what is happening in Kebbi.
Yes.
If we're able to understand the Kebbi politics, you have solved the Nigerian problem. Exactly. Because there are two camps in Kebbi. On the one side is the House leader, the Senate leader, aside partnering with Alero, and on the other side is the Attorney General partnering with the governor. So if this side wins, one becomes senator, one becomes governor. Yes. If this side wins, one return as senator, one becomes governor. So that game, and two of them on this side have a privilege because two are in the parliament, two are in the executive, and it's one side. So by this bill, whoever is contesting, not elected, once you are a political appointee, and that will impact on the Attorney General of the Federation. Is a political appointee. Absolutely. So he must pull out if he still has interest in the seat of Kebbi. He must resign ahead of this provision.
The issue of because the two issues now arise, Madam. One is the rumored, or at least the anticipated, based on those interests that you just identified, the anticipated amendment that the president might send later, or at least is expected to send later, particularly regarding that area to the National Assembly. The power that the National Assembly have to delay it until the election, because the new law also says, and we'll come to that in a moment, that primaries must be conducted 180 days before
at least 6
election
months
day, which is an important issue that we have to discuss as well. You know, so how is that going to play out? That's one. And then two, perhaps even more importantly, there is an office that is also an appointative office, but not appointative in the sense in which a special advisor or minister is. I'm talking about the office of the CBN governor.
Okay.
How is this playing out in this?
So that's why this electoral act is very interesting. But the president has already sent a notice that he wants the National Assembly to amend that, because in his opinion, he feels that this is a disenfranchisement of the political rights of those people that are supposed to be there. But you see, the system that we run is that very soon, and I say very soon, in the nearest future, every member of Senate would have been a past governor. There are some states where you have at least 2 past governors sitting in the Senate. So it becomes a requirement that you must be a past governor in order to become a senator. Take, for instance, my state, Delta State. My present governor was a senator. Now he left Senate, came back, he ran office for 2 terms, he has been governor for 2 years, and there's already this tension between him and the sitting senator. In fact, the sitting senator had to decamp to the other political party
because he wants to be governor.
Yes, because you understand. So because he wants to retain his seat. Already the deputy Senate president wants to be governor, and so you have that kind of tension between all of them, and it's happening everywhere. But with this provision in the law, which actually favors the senators more. It favors the members of the National Assembly more. Anybody who has undergone, who is occupying an elected office is not affected by that. And you know, because I've always had that back and front between appointed, especially at Senate, especially at ministerial level, and members of the National Assembly. They've always had that. You see somebody who was a minister. The present governor of Ekiti State was Minister of Mines when he contested the governorship seat of Ekiti State, and he left there to win that election. So it's like you begin to groom people to say you want you to occupy this position because of your loyalty, because of what you had done. And so you put people, and now, you know, another thing that we shouldn't even lose sight of is that you put people in certain positions because you want them to amass certain wealth to be able to contest that election. And that's what we're seeing. The Rotimi Amechi wants to become a president or vice president, but he's in that office because he's able to stay relevant within the electoral circle. He's able to amass certain wealth to be able to run that election. So, but what the wisdom behind this provision is that members of the National Assembly have been able to secure their own position and then put those elected officials, close the door on all of that. So, but and that's what I think we should do. The president has asked for an amendment of that because it touches on a lot of the people within his cabinet. We have just talked about the Attorney General. We have just talked about the CBN governor.
Would he get the amendment? Because to amend, the National Assembly also has a role to play in that process.
It is, in fact, when we are saying to amend, it is only the National Assembly that plays the role.
Their own interest?
It is only the National Assembly that has to play that role.
Okay.
So members of the National Assembly may keep it because if we don't have an electoral, now the most important thing is that we have an electoral act that we're going to use to run the 2023 election. So at any point in time, the president decides to write, he has made that notice, but he has not written officially. He needs to write officially to the National Assembly, say this is what I want, just like he did with the Petroleum Industry Act. And we are just seeing that the National Assembly is just sending the amendment. It takes a lot of time to do that amendment. And there's a particular time because if the primaries are going to happen at least 6 months before that election, the senators and the members of the National Assembly will play politics with it. And they will keep it. And nobody will crucify them because they have played their role.
Another key dimension of that is how it might affect the office of the CBN governor, because this is the first time in Nigeria that we are seeing explicitly anyway, others may have harbored that ambition before, because you never can tell what's in the person's heart. But this is the first time we've seen it explicitly. So we would be looking at that just in just a minute when we return from break. Thank you very much, our viewers, for staying with us. We'll be taking a break in just a few seconds. When we return, we'll go straight into it. We're talking about the new Electoral Law 2022. Stay with us.
Hello, and welcome to Trust TV News Updates.
I'm Zainab Bala. For more news, follow us across all our social media platforms.
The nightmare that most of these Pape residents have dreaded for many years is finally happening.
The place is a skeleton of itself, a place that was once busy with patients trooping in and out.
I'm standing right now. I'm standing on top of the Maloney Hill in the ancient city of Kefi.
Cooperation. I know communities where they are contributing to buy locally manufactured guns to defend themselves.
Being a Nigerian entrepreneur, and I am going to be taking you on a journey to show you the beautiful, the motivational and resilient nature of Nigerian entrepreneurs.
Behind me is the Arewa Textile Mill, established in 1963 and eventually closed down in 2004.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
Let's travel down to Shekau, a community in Yobe State, to talk to Shekau's mother on what she thinks about this development.
Well, even to be a magistrate is a funny thing.
Yes. Have things changed? Is there more corruption now in the judiciary? What can we do about it?
Well, this is one of the internally displaced camps here in Gusau, the Zamfara State's capital.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Daily Politics on Trust TV. You can follow all this discussion on all our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, Instagram. Before we went on the short break, we were discussing the significance of the new electoral law to Nigerian democracy. So, Mr. Ibe, as we were saying while the break was on, how does it also include the office of the CBN governor?
The CBN governor is an appointee of government. He's not elected.
Okay.
So that section 84, clause 12, says those political appointees. Maybe people can argue, you could go to court to find out whether the CBN governor, which is tenure-based, because he got tenure, his appointment was based on tenure, unlike the ministers without tenure. However, it is the position of the CBN governor is not an elected position. And just to add to what Faith had said earlier, what the elected official did was to secure all of the elected officials, including those in the executive. Whether you are governor, you are president, you are deputy governor, you are chair of council, is secured. Okay. So once it's an elected position, it means that you went into a process. So when you are now there, you now select your people, no longer determined by the will of the generality of others. So for you to be elected, you got some level of security from whether it was manipulated either way, but you got elected by certain vote. You are now the one who determines who become these appointees. We didn't have to vote on who the Senate, the Minister of Attorney General would be. We didn't have to vote who was Minister of Transport. Neither did we vote who became CBN governor. So all of them. And I'm curious, you know why is a bit, I'm curious. I don't know the CBN governor, who should be more like a capitalist, who should be more of an economic solution provider in this situation that Nigeria has found itself, now playing politics. It therefore means, with all due respect, that all the reason why our Naira consistently get devaluated has political undertone. Because it's got interest. And
that's a serious argument and a very contentious one.
because somebody would have told you, I need this, and it's not a financial, maybe it's not wisdom to say go ahead with it, because you have interest, and somebody may have promised you that don't worry, I know the president. You know what our politics is? We were told some years ago that it was at the volleyball pitch or something like that, I don't know the pitch, where MKO was told, at the golf course, MKO was told he was going to be president. So we don't know where the CBN governor was told that, I'm going to make you. It has never been in politics.
The conjecture in all this is quite high, but you have your right to these positions. And in a sense, they make sense, because if you are not in politics, if we are not seeing him being associated with politics, all this would not have arisen. So there's a point there. But maybe we can go beyond that, to look at two other provisions of this new law. One that requires that that elections campaigns can start 150 days before. This is a significant improvement on the 90 days that we had in the previous time. Imagine running a presidential election in Nigeria and you have to visit all the 36 states in 90 days,
including the FCT.
Including the FCT, 37 states now, and so to speak. But now you have 150 days. But also the one that says that the list of candidates should be submitted to INEC 80 days, 180 days, that's 6 months before election day. So how significant are these two provisions?
The reason why I'm so happy about that provision is also that it's a provision that gets our political parties to do the work. To ensure that they are ready for elections to happen. You have a political party and you have candidates, and then you're not campaigning, but you just want to run for an election and then be ready to buy votes. You're not campaigning. So what it does is that it has given you more time to be able to, one, articulate your issues and sell yourself to the Nigerian public, especially now that we have some of these electronic means that have been put in place to protect the electoral process. So we will get to a time in Nigeria where you have not been able to sell yourself and you're thinking that you're going to win elections because of the old methodologies that we have had. And you will go out to the field and you will lose, shamefully. Now, with the 150 days to campaign, you don't have an excuse to say we are not prepared. Some politicians have argued that they don't have enough time to prepare. It's taxing, it's stressful. They have to go through the others around the 37 states. And it's not just at the federal level, it's also affecting the state levels. The issue around even appointments that we just talked about is also affecting the state levels. There's a situation whereby the governor, for instance, appoints somebody to be secretary to the state government, but because he's planning that when he leaves office, the secretary to the state government takes over. Yes. Usually they don't expect their deputy governors. It's only very rare that you find a deputy governor who has run for an election to be appointed. So you have the situation. The wisdom of that is that as political parties, you should go back to your drawing table and prepare. An election, at the end of an election, who are the people who benefits from that process? It is the politicians that benefit from it. So they should put in more work into it. They should have a system to prepare themselves.
There's a contradiction between the two provisions, because one says that the parties must produce candidates 180 days before election.
Yes.
And the other says that campaigns should commence 150 days before the election.
Yeah,
so there is a 30-day period of difference.
Exactly.
So I will be a candidate for 30 days, waiting before I can begin.
Before your primaries.
After primaries.
No, because if you're going, you have 150 days to run for your campaign before election. But you need
it means
60
I will have 30 days
yes.
while I'm a candidate before commencing campaign proper.
The truth of the matter is that, elections are not conducted by individuals.
Okay.
It is a political party that actually run elections. So on the ballot paper, the names of individual candidates are not put there on the ballot paper. It is the political party. So when the political party is running that election, it is a program of the political party that you are selling to people. Even though we have seen some situations where people vote for a particular candidate. Like I told people that if you study the FCT election that happened, what happened with AMAG was more or less like a protest vote, or a protest vote of the people because the courts had to change a particular candidate. So you have that period for a political party to prepare a particular candidate to be able to run
before campaigns begin
exactly. So that, because you are not running by yourself, it is not the name of the individual. And that's also very tricky. Because if you have not been able to sort out issues at party level, Agbe mentioned something about internal democracy at political parties.
Yes.
It's at level 0.
Absolutely.
There's nothing like internal democracy at political parties level. And because they have not been able to get it right at political party level, that's why they're not able to translate whatever democratic systems they have within their political party into the society and into the system. So you have that happening at that level. So at the end of the day, what happens is that it is a political party that runs all of the campaigns. But within a certain time, they put a face to that campaign. Now you have, in most of the political parties, you have 100 candidates who are coming out. But close to all of that, you begin to streamline who the candidates are.
That actually reminds me, the hundreds of political parties. Just 2-3 days ago, we were talking about the national movement, the third force, I'm sure you followed that in the news, by Konkoso, Solomon Dalong, and a number of other associates like that. So with this new act now, how would that affect their chances going forward? Because they see themselves as a political movement, not as a pressure group or some kind of... how would that affect their chances?
They may likely just adopt a party.
Okay.
Because they're a team political party. Because once INEC releases the timeline for poll, 2023, automatically, if you are not a political party as at that time, you cannot even get involved. So if you are a political pressure group or movement now, you need to go through the process of registration. And registration does not happen within 2 days. Absolutely. So it takes a lot of time. So that may be what happened with the merger of parties in the 2023 election, APC, ACPN, ACN, new PDP, and a small part of ABGA. So the whole narrative is clear. Maybe just a bit, just to comment about the aspect you talked about 80.
Go ahead.
In Ghana, you have a candidate at least a year before election.
Interesting.
It's to prepare the mind of the candidate for the campaign, to draw up a strategic intervention for campaign, so that you're not in a hurry. Also, you know that it's now 15 billion naira for a president to use, so there's not a lot of money involved. But do you know what it means to campaign within 2 months? Because usually some of them campaign within 1 month. Yes. Even with that days of 90 days, you will never see their campaign in the public until like 2 months to election. They will then release the schedule of campaign, and then the police require them to submit so that there's no conflict between the two parties, just to be able to manage for security reasons. With this 150 days, what it enabled party, particularly young people, women, who may not have amassed the kind of way others may have amassed, now require time. Could go on train from Kaduna to Abuja and pack all the campaign team on a train. It reduces the cost. You don't need to charter airline and flying all over the country that they saw.
It gives opportunities to marginalized groups.
Particularly marginalized groups, and it creates. That's one aspect, funding. Another aspect is for the jurisprudence, the court processes. Faith just talked about what happened in SCT. They said some individuals didn't participate in the party primaries. And the court said they are the one who won. And that was what we know, whether it's true or not, but that's the information in the public. If that is true, therefore, all of those needed to be resolved at the party level. And there's a whole lot of time for discussion, conversation. Okay, we understand that, but let's talk. The parties always have, they set up party primary committee. They also set up appeal committees. After the primaries, people are angry. Whether you are truly supposed to win or not, you get angry because you didn't win. But when the process is open and fair, that is what the law also brings to fore. Number one, even though President Buhari advocated for consensus candidate is not as it were before. For there to be a consensus candidate, every aspirant involved must sign off to say, I agree with this consensus candidate, and I sign.
Which is one of the more interesting provisions in the law.
Very important.
Yes.
And for the indirect primaries, there are other tightening loopholes that be tightened up. There must be some.
So maybe I just, because I have a couple of questions more before we go. We're just short of time already. But there's this issue that I mentioned earlier regarding under duress. The law says that if INEC, if an official, returning officer, because whatever they say is final, at the polling booth where the election takes place. So if a returning officer says that he declared the results, involuntarily, that is, the result was not declared involuntarily, what you interpret as under duress. So what is the scope of that provision? Is it only under duress? Does it also include, for example, enticements, bribery, and other things that may have been, or threats, even without...
Yes, it includes that. Over the years, what politicians, if you go to the field, what politicians do is that they go out to look for a returning officer. And do you know what they say to them? Just declare me, irrespective of the election. This is the same country where somebody declared his result on a 2015 result sheet. 2015 result sheet.
In a 2019
election. And that person was returned. And even when INEC said, no, let us take a step back and review this. This is not right. Because a pronouncement had been made, that person was given a return certificate. So what the new provision is saying, let us look at that. Give INEC the opportunity to take a step back and review the process. If somebody is courageous enough to come to say, I am declaring this result under duress, you should protect that person. People have declared results not just under duress, even at gunpoint. And later they came out to say, this result was declared under gunpoint. This is not the true reflection of what has happened. But because you had a law that gave INEC the responsibility of planning for election, conducting an election, but it's not responsible for declaring that election. Then after the election, INEC now comes in. There's a missing gap. So what that provision in that law is doing is to protect, link up that missing gap and give INEC the responsibility to review the outcome of an election they have so conducted. So when you have an election where you have anomalies, people have come out to complain, issues about corruption and things like that, that says this person went ahead to declare this result, even though the person didn't win the election, INEC is able to say, you know, what the interesting thing about what happened with the case Aigbe mentioned was that INEC actually came out to say, we cannot reward irresponsibility in an electoral process.
Yet the courts
the courts went ahead to say, no, this person. So now what we have done is you have an INEC. You have an INEC that is responsible for planning an election, conducting an election, and also being able to testify that this result is an INEC result, and before the courts would come in.
Thank you very much. So, we agreed that you will be having the final word, right? And as you had the first word, you know. So, if those of you in the civil society who have been at the front line of the struggle on behalf of Nigerians, Madam Faith and yourself, Ibi, what are you satisfied with the outcome where we are now? In maybe 30 seconds.
Yes, okay. But until we use it.
Okay.
Because, like I said on this show, that politicians are very tactical. They could also explore any things that we are not seeing. We've blocked loopholes. We've agitated. And the Senate, the National Assembly has taken those in, and the President has finally agreed. Those loopholes, it may also throw up another loophole.
Yes.
Laws, you know, is in Nigeria, we just do law. You go to the UK, their constitution is like less than half of our own constitution. Because the law is in the mind of the people. Not to do the wrong thing is in the mind of the people. You don't need a policeman to tell you that you are breaking the street light. But yeah, you need to put all of those in place to make sure that people respect those laws. However, we will police this law. We will ensure that INEC does the right thing, because this is not an INEC law, this is a Nigerian law, and we own it.
Thank you. So I think that says everything. Thank you very much, Madam Faith Nwadishi, for coming on the show. Thank you very much, Mr. Austin Aigbe, also for coming on the show. You two are very good speakers, and we really like to have you on this show once more. We'll be getting in touch with you when the time arises, you know, when the date arises. Thank you. Thank you also our viewers who, because of you, that we come here and we find all these guests so that we can together rub minds about issues of politics, policy, and governance. It's been nice being with you this evening. We hope that you join us again Monday next week when we bring you another edition of Daily Politics on Trust TV. My name is Suleiman Suleiman. Good night.